All right. The most important topic of the day, because I'm moderating it. Just kidding. All right. So we're going to talk about mechanics predictions, liquidity arbitrage, and price discovery, which are arguably, obviously, three of the most important parts of prediction markets. Three things that I think all prediction market, I guess next gen prediction market founders, just like myself, some of you guys, struggle with the most, right? The biggest hurdles that we have. Quickly, though, give yourself maybe a quick intro, one-liner about who you are, what you do, and then I'll get to my questions.
I deal with the mic. All right, so I'm Lucas, co-founder of Kashbot. We are after the social native, permissionless prediction markets. We target flash markets, so something between 24 hours, 72 hours, and everything is absolutely on social, from event discovery, so from flash market discovery to execution as well. So hopefully you will like it very much once it comes out very soon.
Hey guys, I'm Eli. I'm an investor at Multicoin. We're spend a lot of time in the prediction market space. We're investors in Kalshi, and a handful of others. But yeah, excited to be here.
Yeah, thanks for having me. My name is Jong, co-founder of Trepa. We are building on Solana. And we are actually not a prediction market. We are operating pari-mutuel pools where payouts are scaling with the prediction accuracy. And yeah, happy to talk more about this in the later stages.
Hi everyone, I'm Sumer from Fireplace. We're effectively building a social layer on top of Polymarket. Yeah, nice to be here and chat more about prediction markets.
All right, so I have a few questions. Obviously, where the time is not a crazy amount of time, so whoever wants to take a question, go for it, and then we're gonna jam on that. First of all, is liquidity. I think that's the biggest hurdle for new prediction markets out there. And so, what mechanisms have you found most effective? For bootstrapping liquidity in a new market?
Yeah, happy to take it first. So indeed, liquidity is one of the biggest issues. You could generally have constant product AMMs. You could build hooks at the top. That generally has the problem, of course, of high slippage, impermanent loss as well when the other side goes to zero. So definitely, it is an amazing system, but for prediction markets, it may be tricky at some points. Then we generally have clubs, just like Polymarket, Kalshi, and so on. Indeed, you require that initial liquidity to start trading for active orders. What we've done at Cash, and it is one of the things that we've been staffed for about 8 months, and the research will be published open source real soon through UCL, is a bonding curve hybrid that actually enables, just like similarly to Pump.Fun, to bootstrap that initial liquidity. You rarely need an initial bootstrap, and that actually enables users to start putting USDC down, and for the bid to get bigger and bigger. Of course, early bettors are rewarded the earlier you come, as well as how much volume in one-sided market you put. So that's kind of the way we're going.
Yeah, I can take a stab at this too. So maybe more pessimistic view, but like your question was, what mechanisms have we seen work? Probably the only one is just like internalizing flow. I think you'd be hard pressed to like find prediction markets out in the world that have gone from zero to, call it, $1 billion in volume that have bootstrap liquidity any other way. Like I think Novig has, like at the start, a huge chunk of their volume was their internal market maker. Kalshi, Polymarket have kind of similar internal trading operations. Not to say that other methods can work, but it feels like that's the only one that we've seen actually play out from, call it, 0 to $1 billion.
Actually, I think one effective measure is VC money, right? You just bootstrap liquidity by giving incentives, right, to market makers, liquidity providers. And I think actually it's also interesting. You mentioned, I think, AMMs, concept product. I think Polymarket in the early days actually had a AMM. It was the, I think, logarithmic market scoring rule. But then they switched to central limit order books. But yeah, I think the design space is pretty vast, and I think bonding curves is also quite interesting. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, the way I think about it is like mostly market-based. So if you have, let's say, a crypto options market on Polymarket, for example, I think we have good references with like Deribit and Paradigm. So it's much easier to like provide liquidity for those kind of markets. But if you consider something like more long-term or long tail, like, will Trump say X at, event Y? Something like a bonding curve could potentially work better for that. It's unclear, but I think it's a mechanism worth exploring for sure. And then if you consider like sports markets, we think that a good way to like make liquidity better in these markets is to like potentially like aggregate, order books, across like different venues. I think it makes a lot of sense there. And you also have good references there. Like if you consider like, Bet365 and like these traditional sports books, you have like good references for what prices, these markets trade at already.
So you guys at Fireplace, you're taking more of the aggregator approach, right? When it comes to prediction markets in the form of an app, which is super fun, by the way. So like, what are some of, like, obviously arbitrage, I think could become somewhat big in this space. I don't think we've seen like the perfect way just yet. It's pretty tough. So have you seen any like, practical, what are some of the practical friction to arbitrage and how do you think we can solve for that?
Yeah, so I actually come from a background in high frequency trading. So I personally feel like arbitrage is something that retail traders shouldn't do just because they aren't sophisticated enough to do that. The kind of players that dominate that space have a lot of experience with like pricing and building, very fast and performant software systems. So maybe for now, while Jane Street and the likes aren't interested in these types of markets, it's possible. But I think long term, there's no way retail can compete in arbitrage. I don't think so.
Yeah, I mean, curious for the rest of the panels, like anything like, how do we solve this arbitrage issue, and do we even want to? Like, is it even good?
Yeah, no, I agree with Samar actually. There definitely in high frequency trading. I also come from a hedge fund background. You find that the margins are slower and slower and smaller. And actually the solution tends to be, creating, simply better algorithms and so on. Since the HFT computers happened, they're still running up and running today. So even though for retail, it doesn't make sense unless you're an experienced high frequency trader, it's going to be, for prediction markets, the resolution rules are very important. They are more difficult to understand, for example, than simple stocks or different tickers. So the optimizations of LLMs to better understand the rule set, to do that in a super low latency, that definitely has a lot of space for innovation, right? So on that side, you can do cross-platform semantic arbitrage. You can do these, with mutually exclusive markets, and whoever gets there the fastest is only a matter of, what is the next faster, the faster LLM, or where are you gonna put that FPG in the globe, right? So I think there will always be space for institutions, but definitely space for be much smaller.
Maybe a quick one. I also like to think in like 2x2 matrices, like you. I think you can think about arbitrage and like cross-platform, also cross chains as well. I think these are two key dimensions. And I think you can, there's also a really nice observation actually by, I think, one CT guy that I recently read about psychological arbitrage. So people naturally tend to like overestimate long tail probabilities. So I think someone mentioned the Jesus market. So it's very unlikely, but still the long tail outcomes are trading still at, I think, decent probabilities, right? 5 cents or something. So you could also arbitrage these away.
So Jesus is not coming back? I think 3% of people on Polymarket think he is. No. So wait, do you guys think there's a way though to like to play out this like cross-market arbitrage situation? And if so, how? Because I want to know for our own sake. It's a tough one. So if you don't think we can figure it out.
Yeah, I mean, I'll naively aim to answer that question. So what you want to look for is like mutually exclusive markets, right? So you want that the sum doesn't equal 100%, doesn't equal 1. So if you're able to find very similar markets that have the same kind of rule set across Polymarket, Kalshi, or whichever other market it may be, you can definitely buy where it's cheaper on both sides. That way, you're actually buying and effectively making a risk-free assessment. For that, however, you need to have a huge index of all the yeses in different markets, all the prediction markets, which are semantically the same or which are semantically similar, because you can also do imprecise semantic arbitrage. So that would be a matter of looking which rule set and which ones are going to resolve to the exact opposite outcome, and just making sure that index you're able to place the trade, right? So yeah, that would be a naive approach to do that.
All right, love that. So I kind of want to get into the price discovery side of the conversation here. Is like, we're talking about liquidity, right? We're talking about thin markets as well. And also you mentioned like market makers, right? Eli, like getting involved, VCs, etc. So like how can we tell whether prices reflect information or just trader sentiment?
Well, one funny anecdote, I talked to a trader, and his view was that on Polymarket especially, like the prices, one kind of mental reframe that he had was the prices don't reflect, call it truth or whatever. They rather reflect just like the mindset of a relatively small group of people on crypto Twitter, which I thought was funny. But I guess like the one heuristic that I think, or one question worth asking is just like how likely it is for someone to have edge in this market. Meaning like, is this a market like very likely to be insider traded? And I think those, like, you can probably, kind of assume that someone is insider trading these markets, and like the prices kind of do reflect reality. But yeah.
Yeah, I really agree with what you're saying, Eli. And I think one thing I'd add to that is the liquidity for these markets itself. If it costs like $100 to move the price 60 cents, odds are it's not very informative in the first place.
Yeah, for me, actually, it comes down to this question, and it really bugs me. Imagine you're Michael Saylor, right? At MicroStrategy, you're definitely long in Bitcoin for the next 5 years. If you have 1 billion to spare to hedge, you're definitely gonna put it across, mainly the incumbents. So you're gonna be spreading 1 billion across Polymarket and Kalshi, and that's actually reflecting the anti-truth, because you're gonna be short in Bitcoin, in the no option. So to which point and how do even, intel, or how do you actually get the actual intel on what does this market represent? So I guess the more institutional you become, you're actually going to start seeing a lot of anti-truth behavior, simply because of the large institutional players just hedging against their own strategy, right? But you never know when they do it. So it's going to be definitely a tough one, and something that, that bugs me a lot.
So you know how a lot of founders in the prediction market space love to say that prediction markets are the news. So I agree and disagree with that. I agree in the way that they are a source of news. I disagree in the way that they're the source of news. And I think, Eli, you made quite a good case for it just now. So on that, following up on that, I kind of want to ask, like, do you see evidence of herd behavior or bias in prediction markets that can distort price discovery?
Yeah, I think in certain cases where cost of manipulation for someone like us might be, quite high. Let's say it costs me like $100,000 to move the price 60 cents, and I can tell the market something completely different. That might not be the case for someone like Donald Trump, right? In Donald Trump's case, it might be in his best interest to move the price 60 cents because for him, $100,000 is like chump change, right? So I think it's like all relative. And it's obviously worth like questioning everything,
Definitely question everything. And so out of that, though, I kind of want to talk about regulation. I think yesterday there was some pretty cool hearing taking place. Well, not a hearing, sorry, like a panel kind of taking place, a round table where both Shane Copeland and Tarek Mansour were a part of, which I think is pretty cool for all of us. And so I kind of want to ask you guys, how can regulation impact liquidity provision, arbitrage, and price discovery?
I can highlight one kind of very tangible example. I'm pretty sure CFTC rules right now require that every market is fully collateralized at the time that you buy it, which makes, call it parlays or very long shot markets difficult. Because like if you want to bet $10 and turn it into 10,000, that means that the person on the other end has to put up 10,000 to take your bet. I think that rule, should not exist the way it does. Because, a lot of kind of markets are mutually exclusive and, things are correlated and you can net out positions and things like that. But from what I understand, that's like a regulation that holds back, a specific type of market parlays, at least for now.
Yeah, they didn't know that. That's super interesting and worrisome for some cases. For me, I really believe the regulation is just going to make what we want for prediction markets is to be fully embedded in people's life, right? We were even talking about potentially AI replacing the predictors. But I mean, if you use like third order thinking, right, we could also be betting on the performance of different individual AI agents. So definitely put the humans at the top at every time. And once if the objective is to be fully embedded, contextually speaking, on people's life, that's definitely going to come from distribution, from a clean communication, and regulation is definitely a big chunk of it. So I think that's what's going to enable to see on national TV, to see on newspapers, to see on the radio, to have even contextual future AI glasses I was tweeting about the other day. So I think that's the good that regulation is going to do from a very consumer perspective.
Yeah, it's typically an illusion to think that there's a vacuum, there's a space where regulation is not touching anything in your life, which is very wrong. I think, especially regarding the US, I think if you're running a sportsbook, you're regulated by the states. If you're running a prediction market, you need a DCM license by the CFTC. And if you're something else, then there's a fallback legal concept called swaps under the CFTC. So one way or another, probably you are regulated. But then the one extreme way how you could maybe think about regulatory arbitrage is really full decentralization, right? Permissionless market creation, resolution through oracles. If you have complicated payout calculations, they need to be fully on-chain through smart contracts. I think theoretically possible, but then in practice, I guess kind of hard to implement.
Yeah, I think generally speaking, when you build an exchange, you're playing this chicken and egg problem with like liquidity and retail order flow. And typically like the harder thing to get when you're building an exchange is retail order flow. But I think in the prediction market space, like liquidity is proving to be way more important and way more underserved. So with regulation, you start to see like traditional prop trading firms come on chain or wherever it may be, for like Kalshi, for example, and provide liquidity to these markets. And the decentralized platforms as well tend to benefit from that just because of arbitrage. So I think there's like a spillover effect with liquidity when we start to see regulation, and that's like net good for the space.
So we do have like 4 more minutes, so I do want to squeeze in one more question because you guys are all very involved in the industry, whether it's on the investment side or the building side. So like, what's one thing that you're extremely bullish about for prediction markets in the future? Obviously, they're the talk of town right now, and I love to say there's much more than just a meta, right? This is the start of a whole new asset class. So I'll start from you over there and bring this way. Like, what's one or a couple of things that you're very excited about?
Yeah, I think personally, I'm super excited about parlays. I think parlays will be the equivalent of leverage in prediction markets. And I think solving for UX here in a way that's like really fun could be a huge unlock for retail.
Yeah, I think for me, it's just the observation that we sort of have a Cambrian explosion of different design mechanisms going on. I think prediction markets, binary option markets, essentially, I think are very core. But then there are also things like Bayesian truth serum, future key, conditional markets. I think Trump is also working on surprisingly popular markets. And also we at Trepa, we are building a platform for pari-mutuel pools, basically a platform where losers are paying the winners. So there's actually no concept of price or trading on our platform. And that's why also I think liquidity is not that much of an issue for us, because on our platform, the user has two functions. He's a trader, he's a staker, he's a predictor, and he's also a liquidity provider. So we don't really need to worry about liquidity provision at all in the first place.
For me, I think indices will be an interesting product. I know that there's a guy called like 0x like perp or something like that on Twitter working on indices. But the idea being like, if you're retail, you maybe don't want to trade very, very specific markets like, call it like Taylor Swift album sales like this month or something like that. But maybe you just want to go long Taylor Swift, like whatever that means. And there's whatever 20 something markets about Taylor Swift on Kalshi right now. Turn them all into an index. You should be able to just go long or short that single number. I think that's much more appealing for a lot of people. I think that will be a very popular product in the next kind of call it 12 months.
Yeah, on my side, I'm extremely bullish on making it fun and easy for people, truly to onboard mass retail, whether it's men, women, whether it is, beyond crypto Twitter, going where the user already lives and make it as easy as possible to the point they don't even know they're using crypto, right? So as it comes, you bet, that's something that interests you, making it simple. That's what excites me the most actually about prediction markets.
There we go. Well, thank you guys. Appreciate y'all and hope you enjoyed this.